Um, Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this session. My name is Max Giveliam. I'm the head of mobile for development at GSMA. First of all, I want to say I can't believe we're halfway through the event already. I hope you're enjoying it as much as we are. But also remember, it's about making connections. So if there are people you want to meet, you have a day and a half to do it. So don't wait until too late. Obviously, it gives me great pleasure to be opening this session on the importance of safer mobile money services for the sustainability, but also the commercial viability of the mobile money industry. We have great experts coming to the stage shortly, but if you could just bear with me for a few minutes while I set the stage and underline why this topic is so important. We all know the industry has leapt forward. We're at 1.3 billion registered accounts in 98 markets, more than 300 million of which transact on a monthly basis. Last year, in 2021, we estimated GSMA that $1 trillion transacted through mobile money. 1 trillion, I don't know if that, you know how many zeros it is, but when you write it down with all the zeros, it basically tells you that the mobile money industry has reached a stage that it's hard to even encompass how much scale there is there. And actually, while we're talking trillions, McKinsey estimates that the adoption of digital finance has the potential to grow the GDP of emerging economies by 3.7 trillion by 2025. So as we all know, mobile money has changed a lot over the past decade. There are still the P2P transfers, and I think they're really here to stay, but the mobile money now is offering a much richer, but also a much more complex set of services for users. Remittances, savings, credit, insurance, and they help improve consumer resilience. We have new players, we have new partnership, we also have a lot of funding going into mobile money and fintech more generally, and that's really enabled the growth of the mobile money ecosystem, and Africa is not an exception. Africa is actually the leader. And I think everybody in this room expects this growth to continue, at least if we can maintain the current levels of innovation, of collaboration, all of which in an enabling regulatory environment. So with such levels of scale and complexity come higher levels of risk. And I'm talking here both about the actual risk and the perceived risk. It's really important for all of us to remember that the mobile money industry was built on consumer trust. Actually, in the first place, it was somehow born out of the distrust in the traditional finance systems and banks in particular. And the ability to maintain consumer trust with services that are objectively easier and safer to use, it's really quickly become a primary determinant of mobile money adoption, usage, and growth. Therefore, more than ever, mobile money operators and industry stakeholders need to adopt sustainable approaches to address consumer trust. And here I'm mentioning mobile money operators and industry stakeholders, but of course government support will be critical in creating favorable regulatory landscapes. So there are many very strong foundations to build from and many good examples to learn from. I learned from the team that in Somalia, for instance, the enabling regulatory environment, and in particular the central bank introduction of major payment systems framework, has enabled 2/3 of all payments to now being done via mobile money. And in India, Bharti Airtel has launched Airtel SafePay last year, a couple years ago actually, with two-factor authentication, basically bringing higher levels of security and safety to users. So the mobile industry as a whole has taken so far a very strong and proactive stance in creating a robust and a safer mobile money ecosystem by going above and beyond what regulations require them to do. I think the best example is our GSMA mobile money certification, where mobile operators have put themselves through the 300+ detailed criteria that we check to just be able to prove that they are on the highest standards of safety. And the certification is only one of the many ways that we are, as an industry, acting as a thought leader in achieving the highest levels of excellence in consumer protection, in fraud risk management, but also implementing robust AML CFT practices while facilitating greater collaboration and cooperation. I'm very hopeful that if we continue to work together, we can all achieve a safer and more sustainable and a more inclusive mobile money digital finance ecosystem that is consumer focused and that caters to the diversified needs of the hundreds of millions of people that are using digital finance today. And I would go as far as saying that only by working together can we deliver a world where financial inclusion is the norm and where consumer protection is the rule. This is why I'm very excited to be here this morning, and this afternoon, sorry, and I'm even more excited to be handing over now to Eric Duflo from CGAP, who actually leads their work on consumer protection, which plays a very important role in delivering the group's mission to ensure financial services have positive outcomes for all. You might remember Eric from his role with the UNSGSA's office. Eric, over to you.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Max. I hope this works. Okay, so I'm going to call our panelists. We have Cheryl Harrison from WFP, who's going to join us. We have Amir Ibrahim from Jazz. We have Tiemoko Keita from Airtel Africa. And we have Sami Muchwa from M-Pesa Africa. So a warm welcome to all the panelists. I'm going to ask them first to say a few words about themselves because I don't want to read a long bio. So I'll start with Cheryl.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cheryl Harrison, and I work for the World Food Program. The acronym we use for the World Food Program is WFP, and we're the world's largest humanitarian agency as part of the UN family. I've worked for the World Food Program for 20 years, mainly in East Africa and North Africa. And now I'm based in our headquarters, which is in Rome, and I lead a division, a section of WFP that provides cash transfers to people.
Thank you. Let's go to Amir.
Hi, I'm Amir Ibrahim. I'm the CEO of Jazz, which is a leading mobile or digital operator in Pakistan with over 75 million customers. We also have a business subunit called Jazz Cash, which has 38 million accounts, 17 million of them on a monthly active basis. So we are one of the leading, we are the leading payments processor in Pakistan.
Very good. Tiemoko?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Tiemoko Keita. I'm currently Group Head of Operations, Risk and Compliance at Airtel. I previously worked for MTN and Orange, still in the mobile money space, and that's been for the last 14 years. Thank you.
Sami?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sami Mutua. I work for M-Pesa Africa. I look after payments across the 7 markets that M-Pesa is live in. I have been in payments for about 16 years. And before joining M-Pesa about a year ago, I worked as the head of products for Visa across Sub-Saharan Africa.
Very good, thank you very much. So just, I'm not going to ask everybody to introduce themselves, but just to get a sense of who is in the room, can people working for an MNO raise their hands, please? Okay, so we have a large majority of MNO. Any fintech in the room? Very good. Any international organizations? Very good. Any people working with governments? Very good. Okay, so we have a really nice mix. Thank you very much. So let me first, set the scene. And Max has given us a very good introduction for this session on safety and resilience of mobile money. We think that, at CGAP, we're a think tank on financial inclusion, housed at the World Bank, and we believe that building resilience and safe financial services, mobile money services in particular, is absolutely critical to help people improve their lives, but also to do that in a very safe manner. So, one thing we know is that mobile money has an amazing transformational power. It can do magic, but when it's not, well used, or when there are issues for customers, it can, also diminish the trust from the customers. One thing we have found with the global research on consumer risks that we published at the beginning of the year is that we see growing numbers of frauds and growing number of misuse of data globally. There are also issues of transparency that we see, and there are also issues in terms of limited redress mechanisms. So the trend is a little worrying because we're seeing in some cases that the technology is going fast, but the risks that are associated sometimes are going faster. So I think it's critical for all of us, to find solutions to reverse this trend. And I know that all my colleagues here are doing this. And on the resilience, of course, you probably have heard in other sessions some of the climate-related issues, but obviously we are seeing, rapid change in our climate, which is really affecting a lot of populations who are already vulnerable. So, building resilience is going to become increasingly important. So maybe I'm going to start with some question on resilience, and tell us a little more about some of the solutions that you have found in terms of mobile money improving resilience.
Okay, thanks, Eric. And again, really great to be here to be able to talk about this. And I'm hoping to meet many of you afterwards. So definitely reach out. Okay, I often say that I have the best job in the world. I get to wake up every morning and think about how to get more money into more women's hands. And I say specifically into women's hands for a number of reasons. Humanitarian money is scarce compared to the need that's out there. And if we want to get the most impact, the most resilience for people, we're going to put that money into women's hands. The World Economic Forum estimates that it'll take 268 years for women to gain economic equality with men. So putting money into women's hands is really the right thing to do. The IMF tells us that when women start to gain equal economic status with men, that GDP goes up and poverty levels go down. So it's also critical to the recovery right now in the world from the current economic situation. So we focus very much on putting money into women's hands. The context right now globally, 354 million people who don't have anywhere near enough food to eat, like nowhere near enough food to eat. Poverty levels have gone up for the first time in 20 years. We've got more conflict in the world right now than we have since 1945. Natural disasters, extreme weather-related events have displaced more people than ever before. These are the people that WFP's assisting or trying to assist. We can't solve all those problems, but we can continue to push the people who have the power to solve the problems to do that, and in the meantime help people, the people who are affected, to be able to cope, survive, to be resilient and come out on the other end. Last year, we sent about $2.3 billion to just over 40 million people in about 70 countries. This year, we'll be sending about $3 billion by the time the year closes out. And why are we sending money? Well, because it's actually one of the things people most urgently need when they're affected by one or more crises. They need that flexibility, they need that dignity. And to be able to buy food, yes, World Food Program, but also to live, to make sure their kids stay in school, another really important resilience factor, to buy medicine if someone falls if someone falls ill. So $2.3 billion, $3 billion we're trying to send to people who are in really rough circumstances, often remote, rural, or very socially marginalized, so they don't have their own IDs, they don't have money even to buy a device, a mobile phone. There's no connectivity in many of the places where people are. So it's really hard to send that amount of money to that many people. They're very, very hard to reach. And especially women. Women are especially hard to reach for many reasons that you can imagine. Just in terms of IDs alone, far more women than men don't have national IDs, so they can't get a SIM card or mobile wallet. Of all the ways, and we use many ways to send people money, basically we use whatever options are available, and they're very limited options. Of all the ways that we do send people money, mobile money is by far the best. It's preferred by people, it's fast, so we can get people money very quickly. People feel safe when they have money on their phone rather than cash in their hand. They trust mobile money more than they trust the banks. So it's by far the best option, but in fact, of that 2.3 billion that we sent last year, less than 10% could we manage to send through mobile money. This really has to change. Mobile money, you know, we can give people cash and that's really helpful to them, but if they have their own wallet, they can receive money from WFP, from their government safety net, from hardworking family members abroad who send home remittances, and they can save. What all of that adds up to is financial resilience that goes well beyond the assistance that we're actually providing in any given moment. One example, just to close out, in Bangladesh during the monsoon season last year, there was extreme flooding. We were able to work with the government to predict which areas were likely to be hardest hit by these floods. So people would have to you know, suffer through the flooding, run, etc. And using mobile money and having a campaign in advance to get everybody wallets meant that we were able to send people money before the floods hit. They protected themselves better, they suffered less during the flooding, and they bounced back quicker and overall required a lot less humanitarian assistance because of that.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you another question, and very briefly, can you tell me a little more on the safety aspects, you know, any consumer risks that you've seen in your work and solutions that you have experienced?
Yeah, and they're all just focused really on one, which is one of the biggest ones. Is the relationship with the agents. It's just such a, for people who've never had a mobile wallet before, they don't really know how it works necessarily, and they're very easy to defraud in one way or another. There's many ways that happens. The best way that we've found to tackle that, and in fact in Somalia we're teaming up with GSMA to do this, to help people know more about their rights, about how to use their mobile money wallets, what to expect. We're really excited about the GSMA accreditation as well, because that just puts us in a much stronger position when we're contracting with mobile network operators to know who has put these basics in place and who hasn't.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic, Cheryl. Thanks. Okay, let's go to Amir, and let's come back to the resilience aspect. We know that Pakistan has faced is still facing a very terrible flood at the moment. When we're discussing earlier, Amir, you mentioned that this was sadly appearing more frequently these days. So we can't expect much improvement, sadly. So how is Jazz supporting people? I mean, what are the what kind of relief can you bring as as an MNO?
Okay, let me just again, delighted to be here and share my thoughts with my colleagues over here. But let me give a little bit of a context of what the country is going through. So climate change is a reality. It affects everybody. Perhaps it's affecting us more, and some of you may be familiar with the catastrophic floods that we had in Pakistan a couple of months ago. 33 million people affected, 1/3 of the country inundated. Just to give you a context, that's about 15% of our population, and close to about 6-7 million people still displaced. And when you have flooding, you lose your household, you lose your livestock, you're displaced, and it takes a while before you get back. So I think the work that Cheryl is doing is of extreme importance and relevance to us. And now we have to find ways where technology can actually help the rehabilitation program and the process. So it's not a one-off thing. It's not something that you can just fix in 2 months, because to revive the lives and get them back to where they were before the floods takes a concerted effort of close to 12 to 24 months. Jazz, as a leading organization and one of the largest corporates in Pakistan, always steps up to its responsibilities and moral responsibility, I would say, where we work with the government right now, with the Flood Commission, to basically find innovative and technologically based ways on how do we actually facilitate the work, because it's something that the governments can't do on their own, the provincial governments can't do on their own, the IGOs can't do on their own, so you actually have to work together, finding out from basically where a relief effort is required, because there are different pockets. And the basis of all of this thing is a digital infrastructure built on your telecommunications network. Unfortunately, in floods, your equipment also gets damaged. So to be able to actually provide relief, we are affected the same way as the people that we are trying to help. Now, coming back to some of the interventions that we're doing, obviously the first one is to create a visibility dashboard so that people who want to help, along with the governments, know exactly which areas to provide what kind of intervention. The interventions are not similar because the floods affected the entire country in different ways. In some places, women are more exposed. In some places, it's you have to make sure that the seeds are available for agriculture, so we don't go from a flooding situation to a famine situation. And that's one of the programs that we're working on right now. But eventually it comes down to, and since the context of today's discussion is mostly around mobile money, you also want to find a mechanism on how you can actually distribute and disperse funds. Pakistan has a large social safety program called Benazir Income Support Program, which has recently given about $110 per family to about 2.6 million families, given through the head of their families. Now, unfortunately, like your experience, even in Pakistan, we are now relying still on cash. So one of the biggest pushes that I'm trying to work with the government on is, let's try to put this money into the mobile wallet. Cash has its own issues, and with the wallet, it's safer. And it goes to areas and it goes to women in a much more secure manner. So that's the intervention that I'm currently working on. And the government, while being receptive, still doesn't move with the same level of agility that we hope. So again, an uphill task. We are there as a technology solution provider, as a mobile payments provider to help. The dialogue with the government is ongoing, and I wouldn't say that we've lost hope, but it requires a little bit of a push, not just in our country, but I'm sure in other governmental bodies where their fear of technology also being misused is higher than the advantage that they see from the technology. So that's where we are with floods and how we are helping in the context of the floods.
Very good. I'd like to ask you another question on this, because I was wondering, and sorry, forgive my ignorance about Jazz services, but do you also provide, either, some kind of small savings product or insurance that can also help those people who are, most affected in times of floods?
Yeah, sure. So the focus, just to give you a little bit more about Jazz, we own a bank. Pakistan is slightly different from Africa. It's a bank-led mobile money play compared to a telco-led thing, and we have also applied for a digital banking license that allows us to actually provide the complete suite of services from insurance to micro-lending, both at a consumer level and at a micro, small, medium enterprise level. In the context of the disasters, I think savings is perhaps not the highest priority. It's about getting the funds and making sure they can be used. We have a huge program, especially with the context of increasing the digital literacy for women, because one of the things that we feel is that women ultimately are better money managers, they're more prudent, they spend more judiciously. So we now need to create a better engaged relationship with them. And the way to do that is through improving their digital literacy. So Jazz as an organization, what we believe in is that the soul of our organization is to improve the lives and livelihoods of women through technology. And in that aspect, we are doing a number of things, including reducing the entry barrier when it comes to affordability of mobile phone services, mobile phone, smartphones. So we have a complete program around that thing. And one thing I'd also like to highlight is that in certain societies, there are more traditional barriers. There, first of all, women are disenfranchised around the world. It's shocking to hear that it will take us another 268 years. I don't think we can wait that long. But in certain societies, cultures, and religions, they're more disenfranchised than others. And one of the things that we are now doing is making sure that there are women agents. So out of the 140,000 agents that we have dealing with mobile money, about 7,000 or 5% of them are women. And we want to take that to 10% next year. So we want to make sure that women have access going to a safety or psychologically safe environment where they can actually transact, receive money, purchase household goods, and that's one of the biggest initiatives that we have right now.
Very good. I was going to ask you more about this, but digital literacy, so I'm glad you raised that. One thing is having customers who are digitally literate and financially literate, but even with good literacy, there are still, people who are very smart, and there are frauds and all this. Are you seeing any of this in Pakistan? I mean, what is the leading threat that you're seeing for your customers in terms of risks?
So wherever there's going to be money, there's going to be fraud. It's a catch-up game. You fix it by 2 or 3 things. I think what we're seeing in Pakistan is more around awareness. So many of the customers are naive. They are more prone to socially engineered frauds. Somebody can call and say, well, I'm calling from Jazz, please give me your PIN, and I will send you 500 or 5,000 rupees that you've won. Yeah. So people fall for these things. So the awareness thing is number one. Of course, you use technology to the extent possible. Everything is basic as an OTP PIN, which gets automatically fed in rather than being manually entered. And manually entered PINs obviously can be given to other people. So with Android, we are working on making sure that the over-the-top PIN that comes in or the code that comes in is directly entered. Then you have dual-factor authentication. You're trying to introduce a number of other things that near real-time avoid this socially engineered fraud. But I think at the core of it, and when I look into the context of our own country, I think the starting point is really literacy and creating a healthy level of paranoia that kind of counters this naivety that we have. So education, literacy, digital literacy, financial literacy, and then of course, you keep on complementing it with technology wherever possible.
Fantastic, thank you very much. That's really useful. And financial literacy, I mean, it's a highly debated subject because it's very difficult to achieve. So I'm glad that you're involved in this because it's critical, I think, that not just governments are involved in it, but also providers of financial services, because we all need to join efforts to make it happen. Timoko, so tell me a little bit more on this topic of safety and on protecting consumers. What are the risks that you're seeing, and what are the priority steps that you put in place to minimize them or eliminate them?
Okay, thank you, Eric. I think at the start of the discussion, Max talked about the key element in our industry, which is trust, okay? We need our customers' trust. So at Airtel, we've decided to focus on 3 key areas, okay? The first one is customer experience. And we'll develop a little bit on what we have actually started doing. The second one is really customer education. I think Amir just touched on it again. Because of social engineering and so many other things happening in our space, we have focused a lot on customer education with customers themselves, but as well with agents. And last is really internal. That's all our information systems and our processes. So now, starting on the side of customer experience, what we've done is worked a lot on the customer journey and agent journey. So basically, there's a lot of work done on the USSD agent and customer menus to make them more user-friendly. The move towards apps as well is another step we think will make our customers use our systems in a more user-friendly manner, and hence reducing all the risks around fraud. Now, big second element is customer education. And on that front, we have really gained a lot of good results. For instance, in the last 6 months, we have seen a drop of 25% in the fraud cases after really keeping on educating our customers. It's really a wide range of initiatives we've taken across our all 14 markets, and that has really borne a lot of fruits, yes. So that is really important to insist and then not give up, keeping on educating the customers. It really pays off in the end. So last is really the impact that we've seen by touching our information systems and our processes. So there's a lot of training that we do with our agents, with our staff as well, and the customer support is a very key element as well that we need to take into account to keep on training our agents, our staff on all the new avenues we see in terms of fraud. So those are the key elements we've actually started working on at Airtel across our markets.
Very interesting, and I'm very convinced that agents can play a tremendous role in terms of helping customers. In fact, we've just completed a national survey in Côte d'Ivoire that showed that there were a lot of consumer risks. 88% of users of digital financial services had been confronted with some form of risk. 40% had lost money, but there's always a silver lining. I think around 60% of them said that agents could help them avoid some of the frauds. So I think there is really a great potential there. I'd like to ask you many more questions, but I'll only ask you one more. I know that you're interested in the certification program that, Cheryl, you mentioned earlier. Can you tell a bit more how you think this is going to help you?
Okay. Well, basically at Airtel, we have not yet got an opco that's certified, and now it's really a desire at the very top to actually go through that certification program. We've seen the very positive impacts it has had on all the other players in the industry, and then in the next 2 to 3 years, it's the aim of Group Airtel to really get about 6 to 7 opcos certified. And then in terms of the safety side of things that you've mentioned, we're really looking at particularly transparency, data privacy, and customer service, which are kind of 3 key principles in the certification. Those ones are areas where we're going to focus a lot. You know, we're going to keep on educating our customers. We're going to keep on having a customer service that is extremely strong, where we can really help customers as soon as possible, as soon as they've got a problem. We have the data privacy element as well, which is key. We need to actually follow some of the regulations which today are becoming more and more stringent. We would like to give the customers always the ability to get to their data if they wanted to change them. And those are really 3 key pillars we're going to be using to, and then hoping to really improve on with the certification.
Very good. Well, I hope you get certified very soon, and I think that's a really good initiative. Let's move to Sami with M-Pesa Africa. So Sami, I'd like to ask you some questions a bit more specific on Kenya, the poster child of mobile money and the world success story. But success always comes with something, and I hear that sometimes there are issues, but we can discuss this a bit later. But first, I'm intrigued to hear how you believe that mobile money can help build resilience and financial health. Because one thing that we have found in Kenya, the data shows, millions of people extracted from poverty. So we have great data on, a lot of amazing influences. At the same time, research conducted by, I think, FSD Kenya in collaboration, I think, with the central bank, showed that financial health had declined in the country. So obviously financial health is related with many other things than financial services, like the economic conditions, etc. But how do you think that mobile money can help, sort of reverse that trend?
Thank you very much. I think that's a very good question. First of all, I'm grateful to be sharing a panel with some of the industry experts. And I think as an organization, M-Pesa, we strive ourselves on two things. Our strategy is to be purpose-led before anything else. And our end objective and our vision is to ensure that we are in the business of transforming lives. I think for us, those two elements will always lead to success and profitability down the line. And it is true that M-Pesa has worked at the forefront of driving financial inclusion, but financial inclusion is easy for a single organization to be able to pull off. Financial health, on the flip side, is not the easiest thing for any one entity to drive. I think for me, financial health is a industry matter, it's a national matter, it's a regulatory matter, and at the forefront of that is education. And you have to realize that education is not about just slapping together a few messages and sending them on a digital platform. There has to be a deeper level of engagement, a deeper level of investment to ensure you're using your entire infrastructure, both physical and digital, to drive the right message out to consumers. The other thing is, I think my colleagues have just said that social engineering fraud is on the rise, and you can't counter that as a one-off. It has to be continuous. How do you ensure that you're continuously evolving as things are changing? And we've been able to roll out products, but our products are meant to help our consumers, but they're data-driven. And the logic behind using our data is so that we build a deeper understanding of where the gaps are. The unfortunate problem that success has brought is that mobile credit has now been seen as a very easy way for various companies to make a profit. And there's a lot of predatory behavior within that. So while we're building and fostering partnerships to be able to drive the right behavior and transform lives, we're also very careful about who our partners are. And without looking at that level of detail. And I'm very thankful for the regulator in Kenya, and I know they are represented in the forum. They've taken a conscious effort from the front to ensure that mobile credit lenders are actually regulated to weed out any predatory behavior that is actually driving down financial health.
Very good. Actually, digital credit is a very interesting topic from a safety point of view. We've seen in Kenya and in Tanzania that there were issues, some people being blacklisted with a tiny little, default on a tiny little loan. And we're also seeing, like, for example, in India, we're seeing a lot of data misuse, consumer data misuse. For example, in the debt collection part of the journey, where, you provide a lot of data to the digital credit provider, who is in India not often regulated at all. And then, they use the customer's data in time when the customer has difficulties to repay, and contacts, all the contacts of the customer with very nasty messages. So I think this is going to be a growing issue. Kenya has been really at the forefront. I know that, the central bank has issued regulation, which is great. We have to see what are the different solutions. But I know you have some solutions, because one of the issues is really with credit is to make sure that when you lend, your customer can pay back. So how do you do this practically?
I think the world is revolving around data. But the problem is, more often than not, we don't see enough data scientists being involved in the product development side of the business. I think what we have done at the M-Pesa that has differentiated our offering is ensuring that data science, data modeling is what we use. We look at different matrices than most of the other people out there. And we're fortunate because in Kenya we have market dominance and it allows us to consume quite a bit of data. So we are able to tell, is a person a net recipient? Are they primarily receiving P2P funds, which means, you know, they rely on other people for their upkeep. And, you know, no matter how much money I receive through my phone, if it's P2P driven, then it technically means I do not have a source of funds that can sustain taking a lending solution. So it's not going to be prudent for us as an organization to go out and give such a person a huge credit line, knowing that he doesn't have the propensity to lend. And I think it's been pointed out, women do tend to be very financial prudent when it comes to men. And we want to champion solutions made by women for this market. And it's the only way we can be able to drive the financial health question. And it starts from an organizational perspective. It's not just about talk. It's about ensuring that within M-Pesa, 50% of the people who are deploying solutions are actually women. 50% of the people, so they're women solving problems for women in the market. We're looking at how do we ensure that the vulnerable in society have a solution that is driven towards ensuring that we are transforming their lives and bringing out of whatever economic or industry or even environmental shock. I mean, we just came out of a pandemic, and I think across the board we've had about monsoons, we've seen flooding coming in. I think East Africa is now going through a drought season. There's going to be a lot of requirements for us to be able to use our data to ensure that, you know, not only are we able to support our communities, but the funds that are provided both by the private sector, the government, and non-governmental agencies are actually going towards the right path. And the only way to ensure this is to use a data-driven model to build this out with our partners in a collaborative effort to be able to make sure that we put resiliency in the process.
Very good. Very quick follow-up question, if you can be brief, please. On the resilience still, you know, we've talked a lot about the payments, the G2P, and during the last, you know, the pandemic, this was like a major factor for including more people into the formal sector, which is, you know, tremendous. Though, you know, there are issues sometimes of digital literacy and all this that comes with this. But this being said, you know, beyond the social payments, G2P and all this, have you seen that other products that you offer, such as savings, you know, or even credit, have been useful with this tremendous shock that we've just encountered?
Absolutely. Very, very quick story as to one of our, a couple of years ago, we launched, during the height of the pandemic, we launched the first mobile overdraft solution. And the reason behind that is, as the pandemic was hitting, one of the key things we realized is 58% of our transactions in Kenya were being declined because of insufficient funds. A further deep dive of those insufficient funds, we found out it's not that a customer wanted to buy something worth $10 and did not have $10. It's a customer wanted to buy something worth $10, but they only had $8.50. Right? So again, utilizing data to bridge the gap, right? And making sure that we use that data to be able to say, you know, Africa is made up of the gig economy, and you know, at the end of the day, a man is expected, or a woman is expected to go home with a packet of milk and some bread, and we don't see why not having $1.50 should disenfranchise you from meeting that obligation. So we've been able to roll out particular products on the consumer side and also on the merchant side. Let's not forget that it's a two-sided ecosystem. So we also realize that Africa is full of micro and small SMEs. And one of the things we've been able to roll out in Kenya is a product called Pochi, which allows individual merchants to segregate their personal use funds from their business funds. And again, this is about driving financial health so that you're not dipping into your business because you're not able to sustain your personal life, and vice versa, to make it easier for merchants to be able to meet their day-to-day obligations in their businesses.
Very good. So we're going to have a little pause here. Thank you to all the panelists so far. And we're going to take some questions. I have more questions for the panelists, but I'd like to open it for questions from the participants. So I don't know if there is a mic somewhere. Is there a microphone somewhere for the participants? Yeah? Okay, we have that. I'm a bit sort of under the spotlight here, so I can't see a thing. Is anybody raising their hands for a question or a comment? Yes? Okay, thank you for helping me. Please, please mention your name and your company or over there. Yeah. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I think it's still afternoon.
This is not working. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, now it's working, yes.
So my name is Sheila Kawoya. I work for MTN Mobile Money in Uganda. My question is to Cheryl. We're talking about resilience and sustainability. So during the existence of the program, the cash-based transfers definitely help to shore up the recipients of this money. What happens when the programs close? Does this then evolve? This is long-term sustainability and resilience. Does this then evolve into a government program, or are there partnerships that you're working on? And then secondly, what are the requirements for the recipients of this money? Is it just a mode of receiving the money, or do they save on the platforms and use some of the other services?
Very good. We'll take a couple more questions, and then I see a hand over there. Yes.
Hi, my name's Julio Romo. I'm from the UK Government's Department for International Trade. I just wanted to thank you first for all your great insight. We launched a white paper yesterday. I'm not here to plug it, so fear not. But to basically discuss the usage and the access and usage gap, and the need to crack that huge issue to create more economic empowerment, to obviously get more people to obviously trade with one another, and to obviously kind of make sure that there's further development thanks to that. And I wanted to really see your thoughts on tackling that access and usage gaps from obviously a telco, MNO provider, but equally from NGOs and other stakeholders. Many thanks.
Okay, so maybe we'll ask, volunteers among the MNOs to answer this. We have one more question. Yes?
Hi, my name is Saruni. I work at Chipakash, leading the merchant business side. So I just want to ask a question in regards to security, for fintech users. So from a technology standpoint, what do you think can be done to improve, the sense of security in terms of social engineering especially? So I'll just give an example to give context. For example, in Kenya with M-Pesa, I know M-Pesa does a good job at educating users and telling them that, hey, don't share your PIN with anyone. But we've actually seen, fraudsters and bad actors use other ways to try gain access. Mostly it's through social engineering and using technologies that M-Pesa itself has actually put in place to kind of fraud users. So what can we do from a technology standpoint to protect users from such scenarios?
Very good. So let's take these three and we'll see how time goes. Cheryl, do you want to take, I think you have to take the first one. There's no choice.
Yeah, that's great. And those are really excellent questions. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about that. Sometimes people just need money for a short period of time to get over a particularly bad period. So the assistance can end and they can return to you know, their normal lives. But sometimes you're right, people are in a situation that's much more chronic, and humanitarian resources can't reach and cover all of that. The ideal situation and what we work towards is to ensure that governments are able to take care of their people through social safety net program, social protection system in general, and that transition from receiving humanitarian assistance to receiving government assistance, it's not really a linear thing. Often governments will have a really good safety net system in place, but the shock will be so extreme that they're not able to meet all the needs, and we can come in with some additional resources. Often we'll even use the government's payment system in order to be able to transfer additional money to more people that the government's program can't cover. Sometimes it's the other way around. Governments are having trouble reaching hard to reach people, and they ask us to come in and do the payments for them because we have a payment system that would suffice. So that relationship between humanitarian and government systems is a very important one. It's a very close and tight one. And yeah, you nailed it. That's the exit strategy, frankly, is government social protection systems. Your second part of your question is, I think if I got it right, is what other benefits come from receiving money from WFP? The
requirements for the customer to receive, yeah.
The requirements? Oh. Oh, no, okay, I get it now. Thanks for repeating that. No, we would encourage people to save. And saving builds resilience. And one of the things we really want, and why we're so intensely interested in trying to get more people mobile money wallets in their own names, is because that they're able to do that. Then we put money in, they use that money how they want, including saving it if they can.
Very good. So, any volunteer to take the question on access and usage? Amir? Yeah.
Yeah, I can let's try to attempt that one. Access, reducing the access and usage gap. So first of all, you want to make sure that most of your population in a specific market or a country has access to broadband, right? So if you have an ambition of broadband in every home and a smartphone in every hand, I think you basically take care of a lot of discrepancies that currently exist in the world, right? Between urban and suburban, rich and poor, man and woman. Now, beyond that, so that's the first part, which hopefully most of the mobile network operators are already working on because that's their livelihood. Yet, you know, at least I can talk about my country, that we are not covering the entire population with 4G services, and we've started talking about 5G, and we kind of leave some of the population behind while we get infatuated with the newer technology, and we spend a lot of inordinate amount of our limited capex on catching up with the rest of the world. So I would pretty much say that, you know, like maybe I should have an ambition of 4G for all rather than 5G for a few, and then make sure that nobody is left behind. So that's the first part, and I think in countries which are perhaps like my own country, I have a greater obligation to make sure that we can provide basic services to everybody rather than services which are important, and I don't want my country to be left behind, but those services which would be used by only 2 or 3% of people who can actually afford a high-end 5G phone. So my priority is basically, I would say, 4G for all. Then on top of that, you have to make some concerted efforts for those you know, swaths of your society which are more marginalized, women to begin with. Again, you can't just in this day and age be gender neutral, you have to be almost gender intentional. And you have to make a concerted effort to make sure that you are reaching out to them. And typically it's more about acceptability and affordability. And those are the two areas in which we are trying to create socially driven campaigns around the acceptability aspect. In certain contexts, cultural contexts, it's also about, you know, like, why should I give my daughter a smartphone? You know, like, it's okay to give it to my son, but not to my daughter, right? That's number one. The second one is around affordability, that they just don't have enough. Now, what we have done is we have made a pledge with GSMA also. We currently have, at least from the data that we receive from the computer ID cards, we have about 24% female customers, and we've made a pledge to take it to 30% by the end of next year. So these are some of the stakes in the ground that you have to put in if you want to be recognized for something. And like I said earlier, the soul of our organization is improving the lives and livelihoods of women through technology. So we are very committed to making sure that we reduce these gaps by making SIMs available, by making smartphones available, by working on digital literacy, and making sure that we basically provide a greater opportunity or a more level playing field when it comes to the more marginalized majority of our country.
Great. So now on the security issue, Tiemoko, Sami, you want to respond on the social engineering? What can be done?
I want to reiterate something that I said at the beginning. I think when it comes to how do you have to be intentional when dealing with fraud. And that means it can't be a byproduct of what you're doing. It has to be inbuilt in your service delivery to consumers. So I think technology is our friend in many ways, but we haven't gotten to the point where we're using it as well as we should do. So one of the key things that I think for us is simple concepts such as two-factor authentications need to be a forefront of any payment solution. And there's a lot of data within the payment ecosystem that floats around. And so one of the other things that we advocate for with our partners, and we're ensuring that any of our partners that is interconnected into the M-Pesa ecosystem, is that we're able to tokenize data. If you're looking at lending solutions, at the end of the day, the most critical thing for a lending solution is a score that is associated with a particular customer. I don't need to know a customer's particular details for outside the score for me to be able to make a lending decision. And therefore, we can tokenize the non-relevant data, ensure that we're protecting the data, and expose the score so that our partners that are looking to lend to consumers are able to consume the score, but we've protected the consumer from accessing other data. So it has to be conscious within your product development case, but more importantly is accountability. You have to hold yourself as an institution accountable, but you also have to hold your partners accountable to ensure that there are no data breaches that lead to problems down the line.
Very good. I'm going to take one or two more questions, no more. So is there one or more additional questions? Okay, in the front.
Hi, I'm Chloe from the World Food Program, and I would like to challenge a bit our definition of financial inclusion. We talked about access and usage, and I would be keen to know now, in the world we live today, about half of the population can't access extra funding in the next 30 days. 2/3 of adults are worried about paying school fees and health expenses. So my question is to the private sector, how you do track figures around account ownership, usage. How do you track financial resilience and financial well-being as part of your organization? How do you have specific indicators that you do collect and track to measure this? Thank you.
Right, so we'll just take this one because it's a big question. Tiemoko, you have priority if you want, otherwise you can leave your priority to someone else to respond. Yes, go for it.
All right, I mean, this is it is a very interesting question. We've started using data, okay, to kind of get that element. Today, the simple indicator we have is how many times you use your mobile money account, okay, over 30 days. Now, your question around how does that impacts the actual well-being, in all honesty, we have not reached that level of sophistication as of now. So unless maybe our colleagues from SAFCOM can maybe deep dive on that particular element. But today it's really raw collection of information. Have you used your account X times per month? And then, that's what we use, okay, at this point in time.
I think you're being very modest, Timoko, because you also mentioned earlier on that you were paying a lot of attention to the customer journey. So I think you're going beyond just usage and access by going into this direction. I think you're going more into the direction of quality of service, which is, I think, extremely important also.
No, a quick one on that one. No, you're right. I mean, basically, the intention is definitely to use that as well. Okay, so basically, but at this point in time, we have not yet actually materialized that. But it is definitely the intention to use actually different ways of actually getting a full picture of what a customer can actually do, and then some of the things will be driven from that. Thanks.
Very good. I'm actually going to ask one last question to each of the panelists, and it's going to be the same question. And I'll ask you to be very brief, very like elevator pitch style. And my question is really about your dream and your aspiration, your personal dream and aspiration in terms of what you want to achieve, either in terms of improving people's resilience or improving their safety. Like in a year time, I don't know if this is happening every year, but in a year time when you come back, what would you like to tell everybody that you're proud of you've done in the past year? Cheryl seems to
I'm
volunteer.
absolutely happy to start. So in 10 years' time, I want WFP to have been transferring money to 10 million women's accounts on a regular basis, mobile money wallets specifically. Next year when I come back and I'm in front of all of you, I want to be able to say that that at least 20% of the money that we're sending to people is going through mobile money.
Sorry, so was it 10 years or 1 year? Okay, that seems like a job interview question, right? No, so within the context of my country and the company, if I'm still there, I really want to make a huge dent when it comes to inclusion, specifically around women, and them having empowerment with regards to financial well-being. Right? So to quantify, hopefully we'll be the largest digital bank in Pakistan with almost about 50% women account holders, right? More specifically for next year, I would like to add at least 5 million more women into our banking products.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Timo.
Okay. I mean, for me, I would like in 12 months' time to be in a position where I can tell the audience that we have started accompanying our customers who are asking more and more about crypto. So basically, we are seeing a huge demand from our customers in the crypto space, and we're not really there yet in terms of how securely we can provide those services. And I think it will be a big breakthrough if we can actually, in about 12 to 18 months' time, be in a position to safely provide those services. Thanks.
I'm almost embarrassed to go last because everyone's being so ambitious. But I want to stick to the mantra that M-Pesa has laid out on, which is being transformational. I like your question around how do we ensure that we're driving something beyond just financial inclusion. And I think we've been at the forefront of financial inclusion. A year from now, I want us to have defined a true matrix within the region and globally around true financial health, because that is a measure for how we are going to be able to track that we are actually having an impact in our markets.
Very good, thank you. So I will actually share my own dream, if I may. And my dream is actually, because I'm more focused, on the consumer protection, my dream is really that in a year time, we see some countries that are starting to think more from an ecosystem point of view. What I mean is that we have so many actors who are involved, in digital finance, whether it's the regulators, the MNOs, the fintech, the Data Protection Authority, etc. Of course, you know, consumer associations, NGOs. So we have so many actors, and what I'm seeing at the moment is that this is a bit a piecemeal approach for consumer protection. So my dream is something more holistic, where we create much more collaboration among all these different actors in one country, and we're hoping to test this actually on the ground, and you know, help build the capacity and at the same time remain customer-centric, and hopefully be able to measure, not in 10 years' time, but in 3 or 4 years' time, the results with hard data. So this being said, I'll just say a couple of words. I really thank you so much, each of you, for sharing your amazing knowledge and passion. I think on the resilience, we've heard the extraordinary role that mobile money and digital financial services can play in helping people deal with a shock, but also in some cases prevent the shock, which I think, and put themselves in a better position to absorb a shock. So we've heard about very practical ideas. We've heard about, of course, a lot of the role of mobile money in transfers, social transfers, G2P, also in some cases on savings, and the extremely important role also of data that was mentioned here, because MNOs can actually accumulate a lot of very interesting data in times of crisis that we've heard of. On the consumer protection aspect and the safety aspect, there are several words that I think are important. The literacy, of course, has come up several times. How can we build better, digital and financial literacy? And the role, the amazing role that MNOs can play on this front, for me, is just like so critical. We've also, heard about awareness, which is a bit different from literacy, but which is as important. We've also heard about training agents. I love that too. I think that's really a good way, a good solution. So many good solutions. Understanding the customer journey, customer centricity, excellent, way also to help build the safety. And then the more technical aspects and the data, again, which brings tons of information. Is my client ready to borrow or not? But also the two-factor authentication and the tokenization. I think all these technologies are going to also help improve the safety. So thank you so much for all this. And I'm going to ask my colleague Saad to come and close the session.
Thank you, Eric. It was very good to hear your personal ambitions around consumer protection and safety of mobile money services. Ladies and gentlemen, I trust you found the session interesting and insightful. Consumer protection, AML, CFT, fraud management, financial education, etc. remain key to the sustainability of the mobile money industry, and the GSMA will work closely with mobile money providers, regulators, international organizations, and the broader stakeholders on these topics going forward. But I'd like to say that the key to success would be greater collaboration amongst industry stakeholders and consistency. With that, I would like to thank Max, Eric, Cheryl, Amir, Timoko, and Sami. I'd also like to thank Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for sponsoring this event, and I'd like to thank the participants for joining this event. The next session, which is again very interesting and is on industry growth, starts at 4 o'clock. So if you want to take a short break, please go ahead, but please be here by 4 o'clock. Thank you.